Captain Rodriguez was reviewing the flight plan in the cockpit of Flight 447 when his radio suddenly burst to life with an urgent message from air traffic control. The usually calm voice of the controller sounded tense and concerned. "Flight 447, this is Denver Control. We need you to check on all passengers immediately. We have reports of unauthorized radio transmissions coming from your aircraft on military frequencies." Captain Rodriguez looked at his co-pilot, First Officer Williams, with raised eyebrows. In 23 years of flying, he had never received such an unusual request. Military frequencies were restricted, and civilian aircraft had no business transmitting on them. Denver Control, Flight 447. Can you confirm the nature of these transmissions? All our communication equipment is functioning normally, and we haven't made any unauthorized broadcasts. Flight 447. The transmissions are coming from someone using the call sign Falcon. Military aircraft in your vicinity report direct communication from someone claiming to be watching them from Seat 17A. Please investigate immediately. Captain Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. Seat 17A was occupied by an unaccompanied minor, a 12-year-old girl traveling alone to Denver. He quickly unbuckled his seatbelt and headed toward the cabin, while First Officer Williams took control of the aircraft. Meanwhile, Emma was completely absorbed in her radio communications with the F-22 pilots. She had managed to establish a clear dialogue with Major Chen, who had decided to continue the conversation while ground control investigated the situation. "Falcon, this is Eagle 1. Major Chen's voice crackled through Emma's small radio. "How do you know about our aircraft specifications? That information isn't usually available to civilians." Emma's face lit up with excitement as she pressed the transmit button. "Eagle 1, I've been studying military aircraft since I was 7 years old. My grandfather was in the Air Force and he taught me everything about planes. The F-22 Raptor can fly at Mach 2.25 and has thrust vectoring engines. It's the most advanced fighter jet in the world." In the F-22 cockpit, Major Chen was amazed by the detailed knowledge coming from someone who sounded like a child. The technical information was completely accurate, and the enthusiasm in the young voice was unmistakable. "Falcon, you certainly know your aircraft. What else can you tell me about the F-22? Emma was in heaven. A real fighter pilot was asking her about aviation. She quickly flipped through her mental database of aircraft knowledge. "Eagle 1, the F-22 has stealth capabilities that make it nearly invisible to radar. It carries 6 AIM-120 missiles and 1 M61A2 cannon. The aircraft costs about $150 million each, and only 195 were ever built. Oh, and the engines are Pratt & Whitney F119 PW100 turbofans with afterburners." Major Chen was speechless. This level of detailed knowledge was impressive even for adult aviation enthusiasts, let alone a child. She began to suspect that this Falcon might be something special. Captain Rodriguez reached row 17 and immediately spotted Emma hunched over her small radio, completely focused on her conversation with the military pilots. Her notebook was filled with sketches of the F-22s, and she was frantically writing down notes while talking. "Excuse me, young lady," Captain Rodriguez said gently, trying not to startle her. "I'm Captain Rodriguez. I need to speak with you about your radio." Emma looked up with wide eyes, suddenly realizing she might be in trouble. Her face turned red with embarrassment as she saw the serious expression on the pilot's face. "I'm sorry, Captain. I know I probably shouldn't be using this radio, but when I saw the F-22s outside, I just couldn't help myself. I've never seen real fighter jets before." Captain Rodriguez sat down in the empty seat next to Emma, studying the sophisticated handheld radio in her hands. It was clearly military surplus equipment, much more advanced than typical civilian aviation radios. "Where did you get this radio, Emma? And how do you know how to use military frequencies?" Emma clutched the radio protectively against her chest. "It belonged to my grandfather. He was a master sergeant in the Air Force for 20 years. Before he died, he taught me all about aviation radios and communication protocols. He said I had a natural talent for it." The captain could see the genuine passion in Emma's eyes. This wasn't a case of a troublemaker causing problems. This was a young aviation enthusiast who had stumbled into an extraordinary situation. "Emma, I need you to understand something. Military frequencies are restricted for very important reasons. By transmitting on them, you've created a security alert. There are probably dozens of people on the ground right now trying to figure out what's happening up here." Emma's face fell as she realized the seriousness of the situation. "Am I in trouble?" Are you going to take my grandfather's radio away? Before Captain Rodriguez could answer, Emma's radio crackled to life again. Major Chen's voice came through clearly. Falcon, this is Eagle 1. We've been ordered to maintain visual contact with your aircraft until this situation is resolved. Are you still there? Emma looked at Captain Rodriguez with pleading eyes. The captain found himself in an unprecedented situation. Standard protocol would be to confiscate the radio immediately and report the incident to authorities. But there was something about this young girl's passion and knowledge that made him pause. Captain, please, Emma whispered. Can I at least tell them goodbye? They've been so nice to me and I don't want them to think I just disappeared. Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would surprise everyone, including himself. He reached for Emma's radio and pressed the transmit button. Eagle 1, this is Captain Rodriguez of Flight 447. I'm speaking from seat 17A. The person you've been talking to is a 12-year-old passenger named Emma Martinez. She's an aviation enthusiast with extensive knowledge of military aircraft. The response from Major Chen came quickly. Flight 447, copy that. We've been impressed by Falcon's technical knowledge. Is everything secure on your aircraft? Affirmative, Eagle 1. The situation is under control. The passenger was using her grandfather's military radio out of enthusiasm, not malicious intent. She's quite remarkable, actually. Emma couldn't believe what was happening. The captain was actually helping her communicate with the F-22 pilots. Her eyes filled with tears of gratitude as she realized she wasn't going to be punished. Major Chen's voice returned. Flight 447 and Falcon, this is Eagle 1. We've received clearance to continue this conversation for a few more minutes. Falcon, your knowledge of aviation is extraordinary for someone your age. Have you ever considered a career in the military or aerospace industry? Emma's heart soared as she took the radio back from Captain Rodriguez. Eagle 1, that's my dream. I want to be a fighter pilot just like you someday. I've been studying aviation my whole life and I know I can do it. Falcon, I believe you can too. Keep studying and never give up on your dreams. The Air Force needs bright young people like you. As the conversation continued, passengers throughout the cabin began to notice the unusual situation. Word spread quickly that the young girl in seat 17A was actually talking to military fighter pilots outside their aircraft. Soon, nearly everyone on the plane was craning their necks to look out the windows at the F-22s flying in formation nearby. What had started as an innocent radio call was turning into something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. The Boeing 737 hummed steadily at 35,000 feet, cutting through the clear blue sky above the Nevada desert. Most passengers were either sleeping or lost in their phones, but 12-year-old Emma Martinez pressed her face against the small window in seat 17A, watching the endless landscape below. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore a faded NASA t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big for her small frame. Emma wasn't like most kids her age. While other children played video games or watched cartoons, she spent her free time reading aviation magazines and studying aircraft specifications. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of fighter jets, commercial airliners, and space shuttles. She could identify any aircraft by its silhouette and knew the top speed range and capabilities of dozens of military and civilian planes. The flight from Los Angeles to Denver was supposed to be routine. Emma was traveling alone to visit her grandmother for the summer, something she had done twice before. Her parents trusted her completely. She was responsible beyond her years and knew exactly what to do during air travel. The flight attendants had checked on her several times, but Emma barely needed their attention. She was perfectly content watching the world pass by below. As the aircraft flew over a restricted military zone, Emma noticed something unusual in the distance. 2 small dots were moving incredibly fast across the desert, leaving thin white contrails behind them. She squinted and pressed her nose against the cool window glass. The dots were getting closer, and as they did, Emma's heart began to race with excitement. Fighter jets. Real military fighter jets. Emma quickly pulled out her small notebook and began sketching what she saw. The aircraft had distinctive twin tails and angular designs that she recognized immediately from her aviation books. These weren't just any fighters. They were F-22 Raptors, the most advanced stealth fighters in the world. She had read about them countless times but had never seen them in person. The 2 F-22s were conducting what appeared to be a routine patrol, flying in perfect formation about 2 miles from the commercial airliner. Their gray camouflage paint schemes made them blend with the sky, but Emma's trained eye could track their every movement. She watched as they performed gentle banking turns, staying parallel to the passenger jet's flight path. Inside the lead F-22, Major Sarah Chen was going through her standard checklist when her radio crackled to life. Eagle 1, this is Control. We're picking up some unusual radio chatter from commercial flight 447. Can you verify visual contact? Roger, Control. Flight 447 is in sight, maintaining standard altitude and heading. Everything appears normal from here, Major Chen responded, glancing through her canopy at the distant Boeing 737. What neither the pilots nor air traffic control knew was that Emma had brought something special with her on this flight. Hidden in her backpack was a small handheld aviation radio that her grandfather had given her before he passed away. He had been a retired Air Force mechanic, and the radio was one of his prized possessions. Emma had been practicing with it for months, learning the proper frequencies and communication protocols. She had never used it during a real flight before, but seeing the F-22s filled her with an irresistible urge to try making contact. Emma knew it was probably against the rules, but she couldn't help herself. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to talk to real military pilots. Carefully, Emma pulled the small radio from her backpack and extended its antenna. She had memorized several military frequencies from her grandfather's old charts, and she slowly tuned through them, listening for any transmissions. The aircraft's engines created some interference, but she could still make out voices through the static. After several minutes of careful listening, Emma heard a clear transmission between the F-22 pilots and their control tower. She took a deep breath, pressed the transmit button, and spoke in the clearest voice she could manage. F-22 pilots, this is Falcon. Do you copy? The radio went silent for a moment. Emma's hands were shaking slightly as she waited for a response. She had chosen the call sign Falcon because it was her favorite bird of prey, and she thought it sounded appropriately military. In the lead F-22, Major Chen looked at her instruments in confusion. Control, did you copy that transmission? Someone just called us using an unauthorized call sign. Negative, Eagle 1, we didn't pick up anything on our end. Can you identify the source? Major Chen scanned the sky around her aircraft, looking for any other planes that might be in the area. The only aircraft visible was the commercial flight, and civilian pilots would never use military frequencies or call signs. Something was definitely not right. Unknown station calling Eagle Flight. Identify yourself and state your position, Major Chen transmitted back, following standard protocol for unauthorized communications. Emma's heart pounded as she heard the response. A real F-22 pilot was talking to her. She pressed the transmit button again, trying to keep her voice steady despite her excitement. Eagle Flight, this is Falcon. I'm watching you guys from seat 17A. You're flying beautiful aircraft. Are those really F-22 Raptors? The silence that followed seemed to last forever. In both F-22 cockpits, the pilots exchanged confused glances through their canopies. Someone on the commercial airliner was transmitting on military frequencies, and they seemed to know exactly what type of aircraft they were flying. Major Chen's training kicked in immediately. Unauthorized communications during military operations were a serious security concern. But something about the voice on the radio gave her pause. It sounded young, almost childlike, and filled with genuine enthusiasm, rather than malicious intent. Control, we have a situation, Major Chen reported. Someone aboard the civilian aircraft is transmitting on our frequency. The voice sounds like a child, and they appear to have visual contact with our formation. The response from ground control was swift and serious. Eagle 1, maintain your current position and continue monitoring. We're contacting the airline immediately to investigate this breach. Emma had no idea that her innocent attempt to communicate with the fighter pilots had just triggered a significant security alert. All she knew was that she was living out her wildest aviation dreams, talking to real military pilots while flying high above the Nevada desert. As she waited for another response, Emma continued watching the F-22s through her window, completely unaware that her simple radio call had set in motion a series of events that would change her life forever. At Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, Colonel Marcus Thompson was having what he thought would be a quiet Tuesday afternoon when his secure phone rang with an urgent call from air traffic control. Within minutes, he found himself in the middle of the most unusual security situation of his 25-year military career. Sir, we have confirmation that the unauthorized transmissions are coming from a 12-year-old girl with extensive knowledge of classified aircraft specifications, reported Lieutenant Hayes, the base communications officer. Major Chen reports that the child, call sign Falcon, has demonstrated remarkable familiarity with F-22 capabilities and military protocol. Colonel Thompson rubbed his temples as he processed this information. Security breaches involving children were extremely rare, and the situation required careful handling. On one hand, protocols demanded immediate investigation of any unauthorized military communications. On the other hand, they were dealing with a child whose only crime seemed to be an extraordinary passion for aviation. "What's the current status of the civilian aircraft?" Colonel Thompson asked. "Flight 447 is maintaining course and altitude. The aircraft captain has identified the passenger as Emma Martinez, age 12, traveling unaccompanied to Denver. Her grandfather was Master Sergeant Ricardo Martinez, who served at Nellis from 1998 to 2018. The colonel's eyebrows raised at this information. "Ricardo Martinez? I knew Rick. He was one of our best aircraft technicians. Retired about 7 years ago, if I remember correctly." "Yes, sir." According to records, Sergeant Martinez received multiple commendations for his work on advanced aircraft systems. It appears his granddaughter inherited his passion for aviation. Colonel Thompson found himself in an unusual position. Military regulations were clear about unauthorized communications, but this situation was unlike anything covered in the Standard Procedures Manual. He was dealing with a child who had somehow acquired detailed knowledge about classified military systems, yet appeared to pose no security threat. "Lieutenant, patch me through to Eagle 1. I want to speak with this Falcon myself." Back on Flight 447, Emma was still talking animatedly with Major Chen when Captain Rodriguez's radio received a new transmission on the emergency frequency. "Flight 447, this is Colonel Thompson at Nellis Air Force Base. I need to speak with passenger Martinez in seat 17A. Emma's eyes widened as she heard the colonel's authoritative voice. Captain Rodriguez took the radio and responded professionally. "Colonel Thompson, this is Captain Rodriguez. Passenger Martinez is here with me. She's been cooperative throughout this incident. Captain, I'd like to speak with Miss Martinez directly if that's possible." Emma's hands trembled slightly as Captain Rodriguez handed her the radio. She had never spoken to such a high-ranking military officer before, and she wasn't sure what to expect. "Colonel Thompson, this is Emma Martinez. I'm really sorry if I caused any trouble, sir. I just got so excited when I saw the F-22s that I had to try talking to them." Colonel Thompson was struck by the politeness and maturity in the young girl's voice. "Miss Martinez, I understand your grandfather was Master Sergeant Ricardo Martinez. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir. Grandpa Rick was the best aircraft mechanic in the whole Air Force. At least that's what he always told me." Emma's voice brightened as she talked about her grandfather. "He taught me everything I know about planes and radios." "Your grandfather was indeed an exceptional airman, Miss Martinez. He worked on some of our most advanced aircraft during his time at Nellis. I'm curious about something, though. How did you learn such detailed information about the F-22 Raptor?" Emma took a deep breath before answering. "Well, sir, Grandpa Rick had lots of technical manuals and aircraft recognition guides. He said I had a photographic memory for aircraft specifications. I've memorized the performance data for over 200 different military and civilian aircraft." Colonel Thompson exchanged glances with Lieutenant Hayes, who had been listening to the conversation. A 12-year-old with photographic memory for aircraft specifications was certainly unusual, but it explained how she had acquired such detailed knowledge. "Miss Martinez, I'm going to ask you some questions to verify your knowledge. Can you tell me the maximum takeoff weight of an F-22 Raptor?" Without hesitation, Emma responded, 83,500 pounds, sir. Maximum fuel capacity is 18,000 pounds, and combat radius is approximately 460 nautical miles without external fuel tanks. Lieutenant Hayes quickly checked the classified specifications on his computer and nodded to the colonel. Every detail was completely accurate. "Impressive, Miss Martinez. Now, can you tell me about the F-22's radar system?" "The F-22 uses the AN/APG-77 ESA radar system, sir. It can track multiple targets simultaneously and has low probability of intercept capabilities. The radar can also function as a communications relay and electronic warfare system." Colonel Thompson was genuinely amazed. This level of detailed knowledge was typically found only among military personnel with appropriate security clearances and years of training. Miss Martinez, where exactly did you learn about ASA radar systems and electronic warfare capabilities? Emma paused for a moment, realizing she might have said too much. Sir, I read a lot of aviation magazines and technical journals. Sometimes I find declassified reports online. My grandpa always said that public information was fair game for study, but I should never seek out classified material. The colonel appreciated the young girl's honesty and her grandfather's wisdom in teaching her appropriate boundaries. It was clear that Emma had simply absorbed an enormous amount of publicly available information through dedicated study. Miss Martinez, I have a proposition for you. Instead of continuing this conversation over the radio, would you be interested in visiting Nellis Air Force Base for a proper tour? I think you might find it educational. Emma's heart nearly stopped. A tour of Nellis Air Force Base? It was beyond her wildest dreams. Sir, do you really mean that? Could I actually see real military aircraft up close? I believe it can be arranged, Miss Martinez. However, we'll need to contact your parents and make proper arrangements. This is not a standard invitation, but your exceptional knowledge and enthusiasm warrant special consideration. Captain Rodriguez had been listening to the entire exchange with growing amazement. In his many years of flying, he had never witnessed anything like this situation. A 12-year-old passenger had somehow parlayed an unauthorized radio call into a personal invitation from an Air Force colonel. Colonel Thompson, this is Captain Rodriguez. If I may ask, what made you decide to extend this invitation? Captain, in my 25 years of service, I've rarely encountered such genuine passion and knowledge for aviation in someone so young. Miss Martinez reminds me why we serve, to inspire and protect the next generation. Besides, her grandfather was a valued member of our team, and we take care of our Air Force family. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as she clutched the radio. Colonel Thompson, sir, would it be possible for me to meet Major Chen and the other F-22 pilots? They've been so kind to me today. I believe that can be arranged as well, Miss Martinez. Major Chen has reported that this has been one of the most interesting flights of her career. As the conversation continued, passengers throughout Flight 447 had become increasingly aware that something extraordinary was happening. Many had moved to window seats to catch glimpses of the F-22s, and word was spreading that the young girl in 17A had somehow established direct contact with the military pilots. Flight attendant Sarah Johnson approached Captain Rodriguez with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Captain, should I be worried about what's happening? The passengers are getting very excited about the fighter jets outside. Captain Rodriguez smiled and shook his head. Sarah, I don't think we have anything to worry about. We're witnessing something truly special here. This young lady might just be the future of aviation. As Flight 447 continued toward Denver, Emma found herself at the center of an experience that would change her life forever. What had started as a simple plane ride to visit her grandmother had become an incredible adventure that was only just beginning. News of the extraordinary radio conversation between 12-year-old Emma Martinez and F-22 pilots spread faster than anyone anticipated. By the time Flight 447 began its descent into Denver International Airport, the story had already reached social media, aviation forums, and news outlets across the country. Maria Martinez was at her office in Los Angeles when her phone started ringing with calls from reporters. She had no idea that her daughter's simple flight to Denver had turned into a national news story, until her sister called from Colorado. Maria, you need to turn on the news right now, her sister Anna said breathlessly. Emma is all over the television. What are you talking about? Emma's on a plane to Denver. She should be landing in about an hour. That's just it. She made contact with military fighter jets during the flight. They're saying she impressed the pilot so much that an Air Force colonel invited her to visit their base. Maria rushed to the break room and turned on the television, where a news anchor was describing the unprecedented incident. Her heart raced as she listened to reports of her daughter's unauthorized radio communications with F-22 Raptor pilots. Meanwhile, at Denver International Airport, preparations were underway for what airport officials were calling the most unusual arrival in the facility's history. Airport security had been briefed about the situation, and several aviation journalists had already gathered in the terminal, hoping to interview the young aviation prodigy. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a child psychologist who specialized in gifted children, had been following the story online and decided to drive to the airport. She was fascinated by reports of a 12-year-old with such extensive knowledge of military aviation. This level of technical knowledge retention in a child is extremely rare, she explained, to a reporter who had cornered her in the terminal. If the reports are accurate, Emma Martinez may be demonstrating what we call exceptional specific intellectual ability. She could be considered a savant in the field of aviation. Back on Flight 447, Emma was completely unaware of the media attention her radio conversation had generated. She was still talking periodically with Major Chen and Colonel Thompson, who had remained in contact throughout the remainder of the flight. Falcon, this is Eagle One. Major Chen's voice came through Emma's radio. We're approaching the handoff point where we'll need to return to base. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Emma's voice was tinged with sadness as she responded, Eagle One, thank you so much for being patient with me. This has been the best day of my entire life. I'll never forget flying with you. Falcon, something tells me this is just the beginning of your aviation adventures. Keep studying, keep dreaming, and who knows? Maybe someday you'll be the one in the F-22 cockpit. Colonel Thompson's voice came over the radio one final time before the handoff. Miss Martinez, my staff has been in contact with the airport and your family. There will be some people waiting to meet you when you land, including representatives from our public affairs office. Don't be overwhelmed by the attention. You've done nothing wrong. In fact, you've reminded all of us why we love aviation. As Flight 447 made its final approach to Denver, Captain Rodriguez made an announcement to the passengers that surprised everyone on board. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. As we prepare for landing, I want to take a moment to recognize one of our passengers, 12-year-old Emma Martinez in seat 17A. Today, Emma demonstrated exceptional knowledge of aviation and made contact with military pilots using her grandfather's radio. Her passion and expertise impressed Air Force officers so much that she's been invited to visit Nellis Air Force Base. Emma represents the best of the next generation of aviators, and we're honored to have her aboard Flight 447. The entire cabin erupted in applause as passengers turned to look at Emma, who was now blushing furiously and trying to hide behind her notebook. Several passengers pulled out their phones to take pictures, and flight attendants came by to congratulate her. An elderly man sitting across the aisle leaned over to speak with Emma. Young lady, I flew B-52s in Vietnam, and I've never heard anything like what happened today. Your grandfather would be very proud of you. Emma's eyes filled with tears at the mention of her grandfather. Thank you, sir. I hope I made him proud. He always said that aviation was about bringing people together, no matter how far apart they were. As the aircraft touched down at Denver International Airport, Emma could see through her window that something unusual was happening. There were more vehicles on the tarmac than normal, including what appeared to be military personnel and news crews. Captain Rodriguez came back to speak with Emma one more time before the passengers disembarked. Emma, there are going to be a lot of people who want to talk to you when we get off this plane. Remember that you haven't done anything wrong. You've actually done something pretty amazing today. Captain Rodriguez, I'm a little scared. I've never been on television or talked to reporters before. Just be yourself, Emma. Tell them about your love of aviation and your grandfather's influence. The world needs to hear about young people like you who are passionate about aerospace. As the passengers began to leave the aircraft, Emma gathered her belongings, including her grandfather's radio, which had started this entire adventure. She had no idea that her innocent enthusiasm for aviation had captured the imagination of people across the country. In the terminal, her grandmother, Rosa Martinez, was waiting with a mixture of pride and concern. She had received calls from Emma's parents, Air Force officials, and even reporters, all wanting to know about her granddaughter's remarkable abilities. When Emma finally appeared in the jet bridge, she was surprised to see not only her grandmother but also several people in military uniforms, airport officials, and what appeared to be news reporters with cameras. Major Patricia Gonzalez from Nellis Air Force Base stepped forward to greet Emma. Miss Martinez, I'm Major Gonzalez from Nellis. Colonel Thompson sent me to meet you and make sure you're comfortable with all this attention. Emma looked around at all the people and cameras, feeling overwhelmed for the first time all day. Major Gonzalez, I never expected anything like this. I was just excited to see the F-22s. Emma, what you did today was special. You demonstrated knowledge and passion that impressed some of our most experienced pilots. That doesn't happen every day. A reporter from the Denver Post approached with her photographer. Emma, could we ask you a few questions about your conversation with the F-22 pilots? Emma looked to her grandmother and Major Gonzalez for guidance. She was still just a 12-year-old girl who had been excited about seeing fighter jets, and suddenly she found herself at the center of a media storm. Maybe we could answer just a few questions, her grandmother Rosa said gently, but Emma has had a very exciting day, and she needs some time to process everything that's happened. As Emma faced her first interview, she had no idea that her story was about to inspire thousands of young people to pursue careers in aviation and aerospace. Her grandfather's dream of passing on his love of flying to the next generation was about to reach far beyond anything he could have imagined. 3 weeks after her extraordinary encounter with the F-22 pilots, Emma Martinez found herself standing at the gates of Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, hardly able to believe that her dream was about to come true. The media attention from her flight had been overwhelming at first, but it had also opened doors that she never could have imagined. Colonel Thompson had personally arranged for Emma and her family to visit the base during her summer vacation. Her parents, Maria and Carlos Martinez, had driven from Los Angeles to join Emma and her grandmother for what the Air Force was calling an educational visit with a future aviator. Emma, I want you to know that this kind of invitation is extremely rare, Colonel Thompson explained as he met the family at the visitor center. In my 25 years of service, I've never extended a personal invitation like this to a civilian, let alone a 12-year-old. But your knowledge and passion convinced me that you're someone special. Emma clutched her grandfather's radio, which she had brought with her as a memento of the adventure that started everything. She was wearing her best dress and had spent the morning memorizing questions she wanted to ask about the various aircraft she hoped to see. Colonel Thompson, Sir, will I really get to meet Major Chen and see the F-22s up close? Emma asked, her voice filled with barely contained excitement. Not only will you meet Major Chen, but she's volunteered to be your personal guide for the tour. She was as impressed by your knowledge as we were, and she's excited to show you around. As they walked through the base, Emma marveled at the sight of real military aircraft lined up on the flight line. She could identify each one instantly: F-16 Fighting Falcons, F-15 Eagles, and in the distance, the distinctive angular shape of F-22 Raptors. Major Sarah Chen appeared from the operations building. Still wearing her flight suit from an early morning training mission, Emma's eyes went wide as she recognized the voice she had spoken with over the radio just 3 weeks earlier. Falcon, it's wonderful to finally meet you in person, Major Chen said with a warm smile, extending her hand to Emma. I have to say, you look exactly like I imagined a brilliant young aviator would look. Emma shook the Major's hand with both of hers, still starstruck. Major Chen, I can't believe I'm really here. Thank you so much for talking to me on the radio. You made me feel like a real pilot. Emma, you may not realize this, but your radio call has become legendary around here. The other pilots still talk about the 12-year-old who knew more about the F-22 than some of our new recruits. As they walked toward the flight line, Major Chen began explaining the various aircraft and their missions. Emma hung on every word, occasionally asking questions that demonstrated her deep understanding of aviation technology. Major Chen, I've read that the F-22's thrust vectoring system can rotate the engine nozzles 20 degrees up or down. Does that really make a significant difference in maneuverability? Emma asked. Major Chen stopped walking and looked at Emma with amazement. That's exactly right, and yes, it makes an enormous difference. The thrust vectoring gives us incredible control in both air-to-air combat and demonstration flights. How did you know about the 20-degree specification? I found a declassified technical report from Lockheed Martin online. My grandpa always taught me to read the original source documents whenever possible. Colonel Thompson, who had been walking with Emma's parents, overheard the conversation and shook his head in wonder. Maria, your daughter continues to amaze me. That level of technical curiosity is what we look for in our best engineers and pilots. Emma's mother beamed with pride. Colonel, Emma has been like this since she was tiny. She memorized her first aircraft recognition book when she was 6 years old. We used to worry that her obsession with planes was unusual, but now we realize it's a gift. As they approached the F-22 display area, Emma gasped at her first close-up view of the stealth fighter. The aircraft was even more impressive in person than in any photograph she had ever seen. The angular surfaces and advanced materials gave it an almost alien appearance. Can I touch it?" Emma asked hesitantly. "Not only can you touch it, but Major Chen has arranged for you to sit in the cockpit," Colonel Thompson announced. Emma's knees nearly buckled with excitement. Sitting in the cockpit of an F-22 Raptor was beyond her wildest dreams. As maintenance technicians prepared a ladder for her to climb up to the cockpit, Emma thought about her grandfather and how proud he would have been to see this moment. "Grandpa Rick, I wish you were here to see this," she whispered to herself as she climbed the ladder. The F-22 cockpit was a marvel of advanced technology. Every surface was covered with digital displays, switches, and controls that Emma had only read about in technical manuals. Major Chen climbed up alongside her to explain the various systems. "This is the head-up display system," Major Chen explained, pointing to the transparent screen in front of the pilot's seat. "It projects flight information directly into the pilot's line of sight so we never have to look down at instruments during critical maneuvers." Emma studied the cockpit layout intently, comparing what she saw to the diagrams she had memorized from aviation magazines. "Major Chen, this multifunction display setup is similar to the F-35's glass cockpit design, isn't it?" "You're absolutely right, Emma. Both aircraft use similar advanced avionics concepts. The F-22 actually helped develop many of the technologies that were later used in the F-35 program." As Emma sat in the pilot's seat, touching the controls gently, and imagining what it would be like to fly such an incredible machine, photographers from the base public affairs office documented the moment. The images would later be used in recruitment materials to inspire other young people to consider careers in aviation. "Emma, what does it feel like to sit in there?" Her father Carlos called up from the ground. "Dad, it feels like the future. Every control is exactly where it should be, and the technology is incredible. I can understand why pilots love flying these aircraft." After spending nearly an hour exploring the F-22, Major Chen led the group to the base flight simulator facility. "Emma, since you can't actually fly the real aircraft yet, would you like to try the F-22 simulator?" Emma's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Are you serious? I could actually fly an F-22 simulator?" "Within reason, yes. We'll start with basic flight controls and see how you do." The F-22 flight simulator was a sophisticated training device that provided incredibly realistic flight experiences. As Emma settled into the simulator cockpit, Major Chen began explaining the basic controls and instruments. "Remember, this is much more complex than any civilian aircraft simulator you might have tried," Major Chen cautioned. "Don't be discouraged if it takes time to get the hang of it." What happened next surprised everyone in the simulator room. Within minutes, Emma had grasped the basic flight controls and was successfully completing simple maneuvers. Her understanding of aerodynamics and aircraft systems, combined with her natural coordination, made her a remarkably quick learner. "Emma, you're doing better in your first 10 minutes than some pilot candidates do after hours of instruction," Major Chen observed with amazement. Colonel Thompson watched from the instructor station, taking notes on Emma's performance. "Major Chen, I think we might be witnessing something extraordinary here. This young lady has natural flying instincts to go along with her technical knowledge." As the simulation session continued, Emma successfully completed increasingly complex maneuvers. Her performance was so impressive that other pilots and instructors began gathering to watch the 12-year-old girl who was flying the F-22 simulator like a natural. "Emma," Colonel Thompson said as the session concluded, "I have a proposition for you. How would you like to participate in our annual youth aviation camp next summer? It's a program for high school students, but I think we could make an exception for someone with your abilities." Emma looked at her parents with pleading eyes. This day had already exceeded her wildest dreams, and now she was being offered even more opportunities to pursue her passion for aviation. "Colonel Thompson, that would be amazing," Emma replied. "Could I really come back and learn more about military aviation?" "Emma, I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a very bright future in aerospace. Your grandfather would be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished today." As the day concluded and the Martinez family prepared to leave Nellis Air Force Base, Emma realized that her spontaneous radio call to the F-22 pilots had changed her life forever. She was no longer just a young girl who loved airplanes. She was now a recognized aviation prodigy, with opportunities that most people could only dream of. 5 years had passed since Emma Martinez made her famous radio call to the F-22 pilots, and her life had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. Now 17 years old, Emma had become one of the most recognized young aviators in the country, inspiring thousands of children to pursue careers in aerospace. The annual youth aviation camp at Nellis Air Force Base had become a regular part of Emma's summers, and each year she returned with even more knowledge and skill. What started as an exceptional opportunity for one gifted child had evolved into a mentorship program that connected Emma with some of the most talented pilots and engineers in the military. "Emma, your flight performance scores continue to exceed our expectations," Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen told her during her 5th visit to the base. Sarah had been promoted twice since their first meeting and was now the squadron commander. But she had maintained her role as Emma's mentor throughout the years. "Colonel Chen, I still can't believe how much my life has changed since that first radio call," Emma replied, adjusting her flight suit. At 17, she had grown into a confident young woman, but her passion for aviation burned brighter than ever. Emma had spent the past 5 years accumulating flight hours in civilian aircraft, earning her private pilot license at 16, and maintaining perfect grades in advanced mathematics and physics courses. Her goal remained unchanged from that day in Seat 17A. She wanted to become a fighter pilot. "Emma, I have some news that I think will interest you," Colonel Chen continued. "The Air Force Academy has been following your progress, and they want to offer you early admission to their preparatory program." Emma's heart raced with excitement. The Air Force Academy was the gateway to her dream of becoming a military pilot, but she had planned to apply through the normal channels after graduating high school. "Colonel Chen, are you serious? The Air Force Academy wants me to apply early?" "More than that, Emma. Based on your test scores, flight performance, and leadership potential, they want to guarantee your admission. You would enter the academy next year as one of the youngest cadets in recent history." Emma thought about all the events that had led to this moment: her grandfather's radio, her impulsive decision to contact the F-22 pilots, and the incredible support she had received from the Air Force community had created opportunities that seemed almost too good to be true. "Colonel Chen, what about my parents? They've been so supportive, but I know they worry about me pursuing such a challenging career." "Emma, your parents have been remarkable throughout this entire journey. They've supported your dreams while keeping you grounded and focused on your education. They understand that this opportunity represents the fulfillment of something that started long before you were born. Your grandfather's love of aviation passing to the next generation." Back in Los Angeles, Maria and Carlos Martinez were preparing for what they knew would be a difficult but proud conversation with their daughter. Emma's achievements had brought recognition to their entire family, but they also understood the serious commitment that a military career would require. "Carlos, can you believe it's been 5 years since that crazy phone call from Denver?" Maria said, looking through a photo album filled with pictures of Emma's aviation adventures. "Our little girl has become a national inspiration." "Maria, I remember being terrified when we first heard about the radio incident. I thought she was going to be in serious trouble. Instead, she found her calling in life." The photos told the story of Emma's remarkable journey. There were pictures of her first flight in a civilian aircraft, her graduation from various aviation programs, her appearances at air shows where she spoke to young audiences about pursuing careers in aerospace, and dozens of photos with Air Force personnel who had become her mentors and friends. Emma's story had also inspired changes in how the military approached youth outreach. The Falcon program, named after her original radio call sign, had been established to identify and nurture young people with exceptional interest and aptitude in aviation. Hundreds of children across the country were now participating in aviation education programs that had been created as a direct result of Emma's experience. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the child psychologist who had first recognized Emma's exceptional abilities, had followed her progress over the years and had published several papers about gifted children in specialized fields. Emma Martinez represents something unique in child development, Dr. Walsh explained during a recent conference on gifted education. She demonstrated that exceptional ability combined with genuine passion can create opportunities that didn't previously exist. Her story has shown us the importance of recognizing and nurturing specialized talents in young people. At Nellis Air Force Base, Colonel Thompson, now a brigadier general, was preparing for his retirement ceremony. He had requested that Emma be present for the event, as her story had become one of the defining moments of his military career. Emma, when I first heard about a 12-year-old talking to our pilots on military frequencies, I thought we had a security problem, General Thompson told her during a private conversation before the ceremony. Instead, we discovered something much more valuable, proof that the next generation of aviators is out there waiting to be inspired. General Thompson, I want you to know that everything I've achieved started with your decision to take me seriously, instead of just treating me like a kid who broke the rules. You changed my life by believing in me. Emma, you changed a lot of lives by having the courage to pick up that radio. Your grandfather would be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished and the inspiration you've provided to others. As Emma stood before an audience of military personnel, aviation professionals, and young people participating in the Falcon program, she reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a simple radio call. She was scheduled to speak about her experiences and encourage other young people to pursue their dreams in aviation. 5 years ago, I was just a kid on an airplane who got excited when I saw some fighter jets. Emma began her speech. I made a radio call that I probably shouldn't have made, but that call changed everything. It taught me that passion and knowledge can open doors that you never knew existed. In the audience, Major Chen smiled as she listened to Emma address the group with confidence and maturity. The nervous 12-year-old in seat 17A had grown into a poised young woman who was about to embark on a career that would likely take her to heights that even she couldn't yet imagine. The most important lesson I've learned is that dreams aren't just something you have, they're something you work toward every single day, Emma continued. My grandfather always told me that aviation was about bringing people together across great distances. Today I understand that it's also about bringing together the past, present, and future. The knowledge he shared with me connected to the opportunities that Colonel Chen and General Thompson provided, which led to the future that's now opening up before me. As Emma concluded her speech to thunderous applause, she looked up at the sky where F-22 Raptors were conducting a flyover in honor of General Thompson's retirement. She thought about that first moment when she had seen the fighter jets from her window seat and had been unable to resist, reaching for her grandfather's radio. Sometimes, the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simplest decisions. For Emma Martinez, the decision to say F-22 pilots, this is Falcon had launched not just her own career in aviation, but had created a legacy that would inspire young aviators for generations to come. Her story proved that passion, knowledge, and a little bit of courage could transform an ordinary moment into the beginning of an extraordinary life. The girl who had once been just a kid in seat 17A was now ready to become the fighter pilot she had always dreamed of being, carrying forward her grandfather's love of aviation into the next generation of American aerospace excellence.